Welcome to the Filmjoe Podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Filmjoe Podcast.
Okay, I think we're ready to go now.
Okay.
Hi, this is Joe, and this is the Filmjoe Podcast, where film talk happens.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, I'm Joe, your host, and I'm here with Carlos.
Hello.
All right, and welcome to the Filmjoe Podcast, where we talk filmmakers, films, trends, the good, the bad, the not so bad, the controversial, all in the spirit and the love for film. Well, Carlos, guess what?
What?
It's my birthday.
Aha.
Well, at least
Well, at the time of the recording, it does not, but for the
Right.
time when this comes out, it will be.
it
And
will-
anticipation.
Right. So for the suspension of disbelief, it's my birthday.
Cinema magic, except it's a podcast, so it's podcast magic.
Podcast magic. Exactly.
All right.
Oh yeah. So well, because it's my birthday and I love film so much, decided to try something a little different here. I chose 3 films that have a common element of
Birthday wishes? Birthday magic? Birthday in general?
yes, and yes.
Ah.
However, there's another reason why I chose these 3 films and in the order I did, but I'll reveal that later on
Suspense. Keep the audience, guessing.
on the edge of their seat.
Exactly.
But first, before we get all to the, into the birthday fun and celebration, what you been up to? What you been checking out lately on TV, movies, anything?
Are you taking out my lines now?
Oh, I'm sorry.
supposed to be the one just saying the watch report.
Okay, pause.
Sooner or later, I'll end up. Oh,
Pause.
pause. Dramatic effect. So, hey, before that sounds all good and dandy, but what are you watching right now? Currently, what have you been watching?
What am I watching right now? The screen.
What are you?
My computer.
What have you been watching prior in this week?
Okay. Well, let's see. I checked out a couple of really good films. I finally got a chance to watch Cocaine Bear.
Oh man. Oh.
Now, this is everything you'd want out of a cocaine. The title, the trailer, that's what you're going to get.
Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear. It's gratuitously violent. It's just, it's silly. It's fun. It's gross. It's
It's everything you'd expect out of a movie title with Cocaine Bear.
and totally brainless.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Sometimes you don't go to the movies just to have like a deep mind bending experience. Sometimes, honestly, you just go to, relax and watch a Cocaine Bear.
Yeah. This was Ray Liotta's last film.
Oh, what?
Yeah, he passed away shortly after production wrapped up. Rest in peace, Ray Liotta. He's the
Right.
man. He was the man. He'll always be the man. But it was a lot of fun. It was Elizabeth Banks.
Mhm.
She directed it, and
Okay.
you can kind of see her raunchy type of irreverent type of humor. Loved it. It was a lot of fun. I also got to see. Oh, I finally got to see the big film of the recent Academy Awards.
Oh.
Everything, Everywhere,
All at once.
With Michelle Yeoh. And wow, I definitely, I didn't, my position on the Oscars. I can't, I don't watch them.
As previously mentioned a couple episodes ago.
Yeah. And every opportunity, I'll make sure I'll mention.
Yeah.
But it was good. So I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. And I'd have to say it was the most confusing, strange, weird, disturbing, beautiful, deep film I've ever seen.
That's quite a statement, honestly. I don't know. Like, elaborate, please.
It's all about life. It's about her, Michelle Yeoh, and her life and her relationship with her husband and her daughter and life in general. You can't really.
You can't really narrow it down as a broad statement or as a very
General-
short statement. You have to just watch it to experience it, right?
Yeah, this has no tagline. This has no one paragraph quick synopsis because it's all. I mean, it's very deep film. It was very good, beautifully photographed. There was a couple things in there that I didn't care for, but overall, I do see the hype behind it. It was very strange. It's not a film for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
There's people going to watch it and go,
This was bad.
yeah, this
Not
is,
enjoyable.
yeah,
And I mean, everybody has his right to their own opinion, but I mean, not everybody's gonna enjoy the same type of movie.
yeah, and this is one that I think it's an acquired taste. I mean, if
Mhm.
you're into these strange kind of films, yeah, you'll like them. You've watched Donnie Darko and
I love Donnie Darko. You know, when you told me, oh hey, I got a couple movies for you to watch, Carlos. It's one called Donnie Darko and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I watched those two in the same night, not thinking anything of it. No. It wasn't Eternal Sunshine. It was Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem for a Dream.
Jesus Christ, you wanted me to go through like the most depressive, mind-boggling episode of my life.
Yeah, that watching those two films, or those three films in any combination, we're talking about, cinematic PTSD afterwards.
Oh,
And they're heavy duty films, very solid, very strong. So aside from that, just watching. Oh, here's a little film news, a little tidbit I picked up this past weekend that I read up on. Tim Burton
Uh-huh.
just put it into place, and it's officially in development. Beetlejuice 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
With who? Do tell.
Okay, first and foremost, Burton is coming back to direct. Winona Ryder, she's in.
A queen of Beetlejuice, man.
Michael Keaton is back,
Beetlejuice himself.
and Johnny Depp.
You know, I'm so glad to see him back in like an A-list movie or doing anything in general.
Well, I think everybody's just waiting for him to come back after
Juice,
that.
yeah.
After that court debacle and all that garbage. I mean, yeah, it'd be great to see him back. And playing Winona Ryder's daughter is,
Oh?
she played Wednesday.
Ah, the lady herself, Jenna Ortega.
She is going to be,
You know what? That fits too perfectly because she has that sort of like this. I remember Winona Ryder in Beetlejuice. She had kind of like that
gothic,
gothic
darkness.
Wednesday look, but
Yeah.
not really Wednesday.
Yeah, and it's great. And it's just the coincidence that Tim Burton was the executive producer and the director most of the episodes of Wednesday.
Coincidence?
I
think not.
So that's a little thing I wanted to throw in there and let everybody know. It's all in developments. You know how Hollywood works. Stuff goes into development, gets stuck in development hell, and never happens. But I think this just might happen because Michael Keaton is hot right now off of the Flash film. The only good part about the Flash film, but
Probably gonna be I am not excited for that movie in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But I mean, it looks good because of Keaton.
Yeah.
And that's it.
when he delivers that line,
I am
Batman.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's all.
I'm down for that. So what about yourself? What have you been checking out lately?
So here's the thing. I've had some spare time this week, so I've actually been able to watch
Really?
some stuff.
Wow.
So I started off with the movie. I think on Monday, I started off with the movie. It's called Her. It's starring Joaquin Phoenix,
Okay.
and it's basically about where his marriage ends up in a divorce, right? And everybody is in a futuristic world where operating systems are run by AI, right? And that their AI are so advanced that they basically cater specifically to your own personal needs. And in his entire the entirety of the divorce, he's going through everything, and he ends up setting up this AI for his computer to help him read emails, send messages, and everything of the sorts. And it's actually it's a very interesting film
Okay.
because the whole gist of it is that he falls in love with his AI,
Okay.
and the AI falls in love with him as well. So they're in this weird sort of I love this person, but this person is an AI, and everybody else. You see the interactions that he has with others, saying you're illogical for falling in love with the computer, and then other people who kind of, you know what, that's a nice little romance that you have with an AI, even if she doesn't have any sort of body. And it's very I don't know if it was actually Scarlett Johansson or not, but the voice sounded a lot like Scarlett Johansson.
Okay.
So I think she might have dubbed over for the AI voice.
It sounds really interesting. It sounds
It was a trip to watch, but it was really good.
well. That kind of reminds me of a film that came out in the '80s. It didn't really make a big splash, but it was called Electric Dreams,
Mm-hmm.
and it's written by Philip K. Dick, who also wrote. Anyway, move along. Philip, yeah, he also wrote Blade Runner
Oh.
and Total Recall.
Okay, so science fiction master,
Oh
not just
yeah,
anybody.
which is sad because he unfortunately passed away right as the Blade Runner was released,
Oh,
and he wasn't really a celebrated, famous writer.
so kind of like F. Scott Fitzgerald before his Great Gatsby went crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
And they
okay.
didn't ever get to see the fruits of their labor and their fame.
That's tough.
Yeah, and now Philip K. Dick is considered one of the greatest
Sci-fi writers
of all time.
right?
So, but yeah, that it reminds me of that. It has to do with a guy in his computer who was in love with him, and it's a strange film. But that sounds interesting. With
Not only that, I have also started rewatching The Lord of the Rings. And not just this is how much time I've actually had this week to sit down and enjoy. I didn't just watch the regular cuts. I watched the extended cuts. The ones that run almost 4 hours each.
now that's commitment.
That is commit. This is how much I love those movies.
Oh, they're amazing.
They're amazing.
What I love about those extended cuts is that there wasn't a lot of frivolous extra stuff that you was just throwing in there. What he actually added to the story and the impact of the plot.
Like I'm looking at it and I was like, okay, I can tell this is an extended scene, but it adds depth to the characters and it adds a little bit more fluff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right now I didn't finish the entirety of it. I finished Fellowship of the Rings, Two Towers, and I got halfway through Return of the King, which, if you've never seen Lord of the Rings, I 10 out of 10 would recommend. Maybe don't start with the extended cuts because you probably will doze off and get a little bored. Just go with the originals. Fellowship of the Ring, solid movie. Two Towers, wow, more solid. And on the third day, look to the east. The
third one just
and then the third one just hit.
It's beautiful.
You cannot top it.
Yeah, all three of them, along it's the regular versions and the extended versions. They're all available on HBO Max.
Correct.
Right? So we will be expecting a courtesy check from HBO Max for
sponsoring. HBO, please sponsor us.
Yeah,
or at least pay for our subscription.
At least.
Okay,
so let's move along. Let's dive into my birthday.
Hurrah! Happy
birthday to me. Okay. So the first film that we're going to dive into is a film from 1976. It's a story of a police officer in the future who uncovers the deadly secret behind a society that worships youth. It depicts a utopian future on the surface, but reality is just a dystopia where the population and the consumption of resources are maintained in equilibrium by killing everyone who reaches the age of 30. The film we're talking about is Logan's Run from 1976, starring Michael York. This is heavy.
That sounds like a trip.
Yeah. What's important about this film, I mean, this came out in 76, a year before Star Wars. And up to that point, I mean, we had, the 70s, when it came to science fiction, you had dark stuff. I mean, it was all dystopia and heaviness. You had films like Zardoz. Look this up. These are heavy, very dark films with Sean Connery. Soylent Green, where they basically feed a population where food is diminishing, they feed them people.
Oh.
Yeah, it's this popular brand called Soylent Green.
I heard a joke one time. We can solve world hunger and overpopulation in one swoop glow if people stop being so afraid of eating human meat.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah, and that's what Soylent Green is kind of about with Charlton Heston. You have that, Planet of the Apes, all those sequels, Silent Running, THX. All these were sci-fi films that came out in the early to mid 70s, and it kind of set the stage for Star Wars. Not because Star Wars continued that trend, but keep in mind, in the early to mid 70s, we were still in the Vietnam War. Our culture and our society was very, a pretty heavy set mood.
Right.
And I think that was reflected in these science fiction films. There was no hope. There was no bright light or anything fun about it. And then comes George Lucas.
It says everything is colorful now.
Yeah.
And hope and adventure and, all the little fun fun stuff that awaits with it.
Yeah, and the bad guys lose and the good guys win and good overcomes evil. So, but all those films in the 70s leading up to Star Wars, I think Logan's Run was one of the ones towards the end of that dark age of science fiction. It was a very important film. And there's a lot of things that you see in that film that are pretty much relevant in one shade or another to our current society. I mean, the diminished respect for your elders in our culture and our society. You know, older people are being called geriatrics and in joking around. We're, you know, you see that even though it was 30, but you see how once you hit a certain age, you're no longer relevant.
Like you just kind of phase out.
Right, exactly. Leave room for the young people. It's an interesting thing. Just like most great science fiction films, even those darker ones that I mentioned earlier, they had elements in subtext of a very dark future of I think a lot of it is coming true today. And that's why I think even though we have Star Wars on up and Jedi and Ewoks and all that good stuff, those early science fiction films, even Planet of the Apes, I mean, talks about reverse Darwinism in a way, how we just revert to our dark impulses and become animals again.
Our old selves, basically, before we became more evolved and civilized.
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote,
Yeah.
civilized.
And so yeah, Logan's Run is a very important film. It's very dark. I mean, visually, it's a stunning looking film, but just weird. So if you ever get a chance, I'd highly recommend, getting a full view of that.
So I haven't seen this one, but I did look up a little clip, and it looks weird, to say the least. Not weird as in bad, but weird as in I like the way that it's shot, and I probably would end up watching this at some point.
Yeah, it's an incredibly, very dark. I mean, so again, in case you didn't catch it, that is a birthday film because on your 30th birthday,
They capuzio,
happy birthday, and you're done.
sleeping with the fish.
Yeah. It's futuristic robot fish,
Yeah, cyborg fish.
cyborg fish.
They have that in the future.
All right, so the next film we're going to talk about is a film about two newly paired police officers, cops, detectives, who are completely opposite of one another, and they pretty much need to put their differences aside in order to catch a gang of drug dealers. That movie we're talking about is 1987's Lethal Weapon, directed by Danny Glover. He was in the film.
He was in the film. I don't think he directed it, though.
No, Richard Donner, the late great Richard Donner directed it. It stars Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, and Gary Busey. And of course, this is a birthday film because the film starts off with Danny Glover, who's about to retire. It's his birthday, and then he's kind of like, he's drugged into this whole police
Misadventure
with Mel Gibson, and it's a great film. This was the film that popularized the buddy cop film. I believe it hit in kind of around here and there, but this is the one where you got two polar opposites. They're partners.
One does the crime and the other does the time.
Right.
One of them is the good cop. The other, no, that first one doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
But one of them is the good cop. The other is the bad cop.
Or-
One of them eats the donuts. The other eats the coffee.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
Yeah, one drives, one is passenger.
But the movie, it popularized the buddy cop film, and it ushered in this era of the action film, a new era. I mean, you have the 80s was very important for one thing, one genre was the action film. You have Stallone, Chuck Norris,
Arnold
Schwarzenegger, and all these greats. These ultimate actioners,
men of men, to say the least.
men of men, testosterone and steroids, the whole 9 yards. But but this one kind of like brought about the action star was not this muscle bound, chiseled Adonis, with a sword and a big machine gun. It was
Joe Schmo,
who had PTSD and, from Vietnam and lost his wife and is all psychotic and everything. He's just an average guy. Still badass because he is a lethal weapon. Exactly.
Nice little tie in there.
Yeah. But yeah, this solidified the action film genre of the 90s that just gave us so many great films. And this is, in my personal opinion, my favorite action film of the 80s. And again, in my opinion, the best one. It was beautifully shot. I mean, directed by Richard Donner.
Same guy from Superman.
The Omen, The Goonies. just in so many other great films. So you have him directing, and he has just an incredible eye for action and this great timing for comedy. He's a very whimsically funny guy as a director, and he knows how to bring that into his films. And then you have it written by Shane Black. He wrote the screenplay for Predator, The Last Action Hero, Monster Squad. This guy,
You know that right then.
yeah, the last Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis and Samuel Jackson. He wrote that too, and and then you have Joel Silver producing the film. Now, who is this guy? Well, you ever heard of the Die Hard films?
Kind of
All right.
once or twice.
He produced all of them. He produced all of the Lethal Weapon films. He produced the Matrix trilogy, Predator, all the Predator films, Demolition Man. Yeah, this.
Yeah.
So you got this amazing, producer, director, writer, screenwriter, an amazing cast with Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. You couldn't go wrong with this, and it's just an incredible film. It's another film just like Die Hard, where you have this debate: is it a Christmas movie?
Yes, it is.
Eh,
It encapsulates the spirit of Christmas perfectly.
well, they do.
Santa brings gift. Bruce Willis bring gun.
Okay, all
Simple.
right. Well, what about Lethal Weapon?
He brings the spirit of. I don't know, man. I can't tie that one in. But Bruce, funny little thing. I used to always get Die Hard and Lethal Weapon confused. Well, I would, my head would just mix them up all the time.
Well,
Still kind of do. I have to stop and think about which one we're talking about.
Well, it makes perfect sense because those, Die Hard and Lethal Weapon epitomize the best action films of that decade.
Mhm.
They kind of set the stage. I mean, like I said earlier, you had muscles and big guns as these action heroes, and those were great. But then you got your average schmoes like John McClane from Die Hard and Mel Gibson's character. These were just normal looking guys. They weren't about muscles and big guns. They were about wit and smarts and
And catchphrases.
catchphrases.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Mother, yeah. So that's definitely is one of my favorite action films that I just love. Now they planned a reboot of the film or remake.
A remake, a
Remake.
reshoot, a re-illustration, a reimagining,
a re-
whatever you want to call it. It's all the same word.
Yeah, DNA reconstruction. I don't know.
What is this, Jurassic Park? We're bringing back the dinos.
But it was canceled. I
wonder why.
Richard Donner, he directed Lethal Weapon 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there was always talk of him coming back to do it. His, the cast, especially Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, they loved working with Richard Donner. They were very, very close, and there was always talk of a Lethal Weapon 5. But once Donner passed away,
It got shelved forever.
it got shelved, and then there was a talk of a reboot or a remake or restructuring and doing it from scratch with new characters and new actors. And I guess Mel Gibson stepped in and said, you know what, if you guys are going to do this, I'm going to direct it. And we're going to do it with me, Mel Gibson, and with Danny Glover.
All right.
So,
I mean, before you guys mess it up and just stick your leg inside of it and completely kill the franchise,
yeah.
let me just step in and nominate myself.
So I think that's kind of cool. Do we need it? No. But, if they're going to do a Lethal Weapon new film and with different, you know what? Let Mel do it.
Yeah.
And
That's the only way to do it, honestly.
yeah, I agree. The next film we're going to talk about is a film about a pathological liar / lawyer. Isn't that one and the same?
It's about the same.
Yeah.
It's interchangeable.
Interchangeable. Okay. He finds his career turned upside down when he inexplicably
Oh, that's a hard word. That's a 5-syllable word, man. Good job.
inexplicably
Gold star.
cannot physically lie for an entire 24 hours. Now, this movie we're talking about is 1997's Liar Liar, directed by Tom Shadyac, stars Jim Carrey and Carrie Ewell. This one is one of my favorite comedies at this time, 97, Jim Carrey was on top of the comedic world in Hollywood. This was, I think, his first film that he earned like $20 million for this film. I mean, not to count like.
Well, I mean, that's for 97.
That's intense.
Yeah.
That's
Even today, if somebody offered me $20 million,
Yeah,
You
it's
don't
like,
know the things I would do for 20
yeah,
million.
who'd I have to kill? You
Yeah.
know,
Mm.
do what you got to do. I love this film because I think it shows a turn in Carey's work. This was one of the first films where he didn't have to have a funny accent,
Mhm.
makeup, be a strange character. He was a normal person. And what I love about it is that he starts to flex a little bit of his dramatic acting.
Uh-huh.
And
And he's done some dramatic pieces before.
yeah, well,
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind being
the
top
Truman
dog.
Show.
Oh, the Truman Show. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's, and
Those are honestly, Jim Carrey is one of my favorite actors just because of those two movies alone.
yeah,
Plus all this other comedic stuff, which
Yeah.
you look at and you're like, how could he go from one to the other?
right.
But
Well, look
wow.
at he did a small film, and if I highly recommend you watch this and look it up. It's called The Majestic,
Uh-huh.
and it's with Jim Carrey, and it's kind of like a Frank Capra-ish kind of film, kind of It's a Wonderful Life kind of film,
Okay.
and it's a drama, in comedy a little bit, kind of fantasy. About he comes back to his old his town he grew up in, and they're about to destroy this theater that he grew up with, and he saves it and he tries to reopen it. Beautiful film, very underrated. It kind of, I think when that came out, people were still expecting the rubber-faced Jim Carrey,
Uh-huh.
and that's not what it was.
It's a completely different type of genre movie.
Yeah, but with Liar Liar, I think you have him being, he's still having fun. He's still being goofy and silly, but he has that dramatic. I mean, that relationship that's structured with him and his son, and him trying to reconnect, was just really touching, and you feel it. And that's the thing I like about a good comedian doing a drama, because when they start to cry,
You feel it.
you feel it, because they're always for Robin Williams.
Rest in peace.
Yeah,
man.
and you feel it. And in fact, it was a very personal film to him. He really invested a lot of his emotion and time into this, that at the end of shooting days, he would just be exhausted because of so much energy
That he was putting into this film.
into the character. In fact, the claw, remember the claw?
Uh-huh.
When he does the thing, the claw, the claw.
Yeah.
That was something his dad used to do to him and his brother when he was little. So he's
bringing in like his own little past self
Yeah.
or
And
emotional piece. There you go.
he made it a very personal piece. But yeah, this is one of my favorites. I mean, to me, my two go-to guys in the 90s were Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler.
I love Adam Sandler.
Yeah. They're just amazing.
Especially in his earlier 90 movies.
Oh gosh.
He kind of fell off at some point. But now, holy smokes, Batman. He has redeemed himself. Have you ever seen Uncut Gems on, I think it was on Netflix?
No, I never got to see that.
Watch it. It's not a Adam Sandler, haha, funny movie. It's an Adam Sandler, wow, this man can act movie.
Really?
Yes.
I definitely, because I've seen one film that he did around when he was still doing comedy, or he was still the king of, like, he was Billy Madison, he was the water boy, whatever. He did a film called Punch Drunk Love,
Uh-huh.
which was a dramatic, romantic film, kind of heartbreaking and so forth. And it was really good. Again, what happened to Jim Carrey trying to get serious,
Right.
people were
People
like,
didn't expect that and didn't like it.
yeah, here's, Adam Sandler, and he's doing this romantic, this drama bit and so forth. And it was really good. People are like, no, we want Billy Madison back.
Make me laugh.
Yeah, where's Bobby Boucher? And people just weren't ready for that yet, from him. And I think that's the evolution of a comedy actor, is that they have to evolve into that and not jump into it right away. Historically, a lot of comedians have tried to do it. Bill Murray tried it back in the 80s with a film called The Razor's Edge, which was a remake of an older film about a World War I veteran coming back and adjusting to civilian life. That's some heavy stuff.
Yeah, that's not light.
And so Bill Murray really, he didn't make that transition into dramatic acting. So it's a slow progression with comedians that they have to get to that point. Eddie Murphy's done it, I think. A movie called Mr. Church.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, incredibly heartwarming and touching film, and just shows his true acting ability, which, really quick, can't wait to see Beverly Hills Cop 4 next year.
It's already next year?
It might be, I haven't heard anything. I know it wrapped production last year.
Uh-huh.
and it's Netflix. They do stuff. They're like, hey, this is coming. When?
It's coming, but
Yeah,
you won't know.
we'll let you know.
And then it just shows on Netflix coming soon.
Yeah, like 3 days before, and like Manifest. When is it coming out? When is the finale?
It's coming.
Well, it's coming. We'll let you know.
We'll manifest it.
Wow, that was good. That was good. So those are the 3 films that I chose to talk about. And as I stated earlier, there's a reason why I chose these 3 films. Since it's my birthday, I want to go into the birth of my love for film. And all 3 films represent my life of experiencing film magic and what shaped my love for it. These 3 are the most, these 3 films represent the 3 most prolific and influential decades of film, and happen to be the stages of my life. The 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. That's what forged what film is today. Those 3 decades. This like I said,
Well, I mean, easily, no debate. I mean, 70s, 80s, 90s were home to some of the best movies to be made.
Absolutely. And, you look at the 70s was the rebirth of film. Or, you have this the fall of the studio system in the early 70s, late 60s. Things started to change. The socio-political and cultural mindset had changed so much in the early 70s, of course, because of the Vietnam and the civil rights movement and the assassinations of such great leaders in our time, the violence. We were in a pretty dark state of mind. And, we don't want to watch, a musical or something like that. Those films weren't doing that well in that era. So the studio system kind of fell at that time, and there was the rebirth of film with new filmmakers like Spielberg, Lucas, Coppola, Scorsese, and all these other fresh new minds that they started to speak to the generation at hand. They knew how to speak to them. Mm-hmm. They knew what they needed to hear. And so there was definitely a shift, starting with movies like Jaws, and then, of course, Star Wars and Close Encounters. So the 70s I was born in 68. So 1970, I was just,
5 years old.
5 or 6 years, 1970. I was 2. Your math sucks. So the 70s represents the infancy and the childhood for me, my childhood of film. I was all into movies like, I started with Planet of the Apes. I mean, of course, the original came out in 1968, but there was a subsequent sequels that just started coming through. There was 4 more sequels after that were all just spread out through the early 70s. And that was my thing. These talking apes and chimpanzees with machine guns and, hiding out in caves and riding horses. It was amazing. And
How did they train the apes to ride horses?
Special trainers.
The
zookeepers.
The zookeepers.
And it was just fantastic. And little did I know, that just opened up my eyes to this magic. I didn't know, but I was there already.
Yeah.
And then, of course...
Yeah, it tickled something inside of your heart.
Yeah, and then here came Star Wars, and that was it. It just drew me into this world that I never recovered from.
Yeah, we're still in this hole together.
Yeah. And it was just amazing that I got to see that evolution of the early to mid 70s on up to, from, you got movies like Easy Rider and stuff like that. They're very dark, Clockwork Orange and stuff, and going from there to Star Wars, to Jaws, to Close Encounters, and into the 80s, it was just fantastic. It was incredible. And I definitely feel blessed that I got to witness that firsthand. But as a child.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm not envious or anything, but I'm envious. Okay.
Yeah, it was amazing to see firsthand. And then, of course, next, which we talked about, was Lethal Weapon, which came out in 87. And that was the 80s. The next decade over. And that was my teen years.
Oh, okay. So chest hair is coming out.
Well,
a little bit of facial hair.
A little bit hair sprout here and there made me go, whoa, what's that?
Yeah.
Puberty. it was my growth, my development into adulthood slowly, my teen years. And what better time for film in the 80s? Now you had all these spectacular science fiction films and action films and adventure films. You had your action, Mel Gibson, Sylvester Stallone, Chuck Norris, and all these greats. And Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, how could you forget
How
Raiders?
can you? And of course, you got to watch this just for giggles. It's called Cobra, with Cobra Stallone,
Okay.
where he's like, okay, you've seen the last
Kind of like
action.
Commando?
No.
Okay.
You seen the last action hero,
Yeah,
right?
I love it.
With
Arnold.
With Arnold
Yeah, yeah,
Schwarzenegger.
yeah.
The character that's in the meta movie, the fake movie,
Uh-huh.
that's Stallone in Cobra. In action, where
Ah.
he's super cool. He doesn't just walk around the car. He'll jump up and walk on top of the cars and things like that. And you can't go on there. If you go on there, you're out of a job. And he throws the badge. That's Cobra. It's so cheesy and tropey. The movie is just a giant trope, but it's awesome. There's a line in there where he talks about crime, and it's like, yeah, crime is a disease, and I am the cure.
Oh, God. I saw it coming as soon as he said disease. I was like, oh, God.
And it's so freaking cool. He wears those mirrored sunglasses, and he has a matchstick, in his mouth like a toothpick. And
After this movie came out, did you copy with the matchstick?
I did have the glasses, yes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I had.
I kind of figured.
Yeah. But, the 80s was just where the magic exploded onto the screen. I mean, there was a lot of, I think the studio output was ridiculous throughout that decade. So many films to watch. Every summer was just a grab bag, of movies. Here comes, late May, early June, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the movies. What am I going to watch? And it's like 10, 15 different movies to choose from. And all would catch your eye. Now, were they all good? No. Because there was some stinkers. But
it was interesting.
It was interesting. At least you had the stinkers to choose from. I mean, you ever want to check out a stinker, check out a movie called Space Hunter. The Adventures
about?
Is the Adventures in the Forbidden Zone 3D.
Ah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad or
Bad enjoyable or bad?
No, it's bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because there's some movies that are just bad enjoyable.
Yeah, and there was a lot of those in the 80s, and that's what was great. Chuck Norris, well, those movies were bad enjoyable. They were,
Yeah.
but he was Chuck Norris. He can lose. So you had the comedy and the rom-com. So the 80s was my growing up years, my teenage years. And you see, I grew more into film and to the study of and the historical nature of film became more prevalent in my life. And you see also the 80s film started to transform Hollywood for better or for worse. A lot of studios, the whole aspect of studios now are saying, well, let's put in more money, put in bigger stars, bigger money, more stars, bigger movie. Not necessarily the case.
Because then you're taking a huge risk on it being a flop.
Well, that's what Disney's going through right now with their recent string of not so big hits with the Marvel films. It's like they throw in so much.
To get back like a 1% return.
But, another great thing about the 80s was that you had not only your major studios, but you had a lot of small studios. So you had studios like Canon, Dimension Films, Lionsgate, which was pretty small back then. You had one called Avco Cinema.
Of the ones that you mentioned, the only one I recognize is Lionsgate.
That's
it.
Yeah, they didn't survive. They kind of went away. But these were outputting films as well. So you got your major 5 studios and all these little studios, and we're just coming out with these amazing, fun films. So that was the 80s. So the next film we're gonna that we talked about was, of course, Liar Liar.
Liar, yeah.
And the comedy. I mean, look at the comedies that came out in the 90s. You had Clueless, Encino Man, which you gotta see.
I want to watch it. It has Brendan Fraser, and he's the top actor.
And Pauly Shore, and what's his name? Samwise from
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. He's in it. Sean Astin, he's in it. You had Dazed and Confused, Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, Half Baked.
I
It's
love that thing.
oh man, I mean these were brainless comedy, just goofy, brainless comedies that had heart and were fun. They were glossy, fun films. So the '90s, I would have to say it's known for its comedies. In aside from a lot of other great films, but they yeah yeah half baked and dazed and confused. You know the whole marijuana thing and which
Yeah, when the hippies started growing up a little bit more, and they were like, "Oh man, we should make movies, man."
right. uh, and of course, all you have the smart Gen X kind of counterculture rebellious films by Kevin Smith, like Mallrats and Clerks.
Mm.
These were really really smart little movies and made on a shoestring budget.
I like Mallrats just because it does have a little cameo from Stan Lee. I don't know if you remember.
Oh yeah,
Oh man, I love that.
yeah.
Or when Kevin Smith's character is hanging, and he's using the Force to bring
The videotape back.
Videotape, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was funny.
That was my adulthood, growing into becoming an adult in the '90s, and experiencing new things in life. But
I mean, as an adult, yeah.
yeah, and that's where you go. Oh shoot, this is real life.
Yeah.
Can I go back to the '80s?
Man, you don't know how many times I've wanted to go back to just being a child, waking up on a Saturday morning with a bowl of like frosted mini wheats or whatever cereal, and watching Scooby Doo.
There you go. But yeah, so the '90s was a great. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, the 2000s on up, we've seen some great films. I mean, but these are the 3 decades that I do believe formed and shaped the best that Hollywood has to offer today. I mean, we don't have the same studio output. We have a bunch of different venues now that films get released through. Like, they come out on Netflix, they come out on Amazon. So a lot of films that got made in those 3 decades, they were good enough. They go straight to the big screen. Now, studios, I think, well, will it make MCU kind of money? No.
Let's just wait a little bit. Maybe have a theatrical for like a week.
Yeah, and
Send it to streaming.
Yeah, go straight to Amazon. I mean, and that's kind of messed up. That's kind of sad. And that's really diminishing the output of great films. I mean, films are meant to be seen on a 30-foot, this 30-foot screen
Yeah.
with loudspeakers in the dark and a collective experience. As you sit there with, 1,000 other people. You don't get.
What kind of theaters are you going with that you have 1,000 people in one room?
Oh yeah, now the Cineplex is like I don't know how many.
It's like maybe 100.
Well, I know that the Chinese theater in Hollywood, California, has about it's like 2,000 seat capacity.
In one screening.
Yeah.
2,000 for one screen.
Yes.
I would hate to be in there.
No, it's amazing.
I hate being in crowds of group of people.
I saw Beverly Hills Cop 2
That's
at the
kinda-
Chinese
that's a
theater,
cool movie.
and it was jam packed. Batman, 1989,
That's also really.
not one empty seat, and you can feel this collective energy in the air. And
I'd have found no lady for a seat for the screening for the Batman.
I think I did actually do that.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
No shame there, brother.
But again, it's the films now are great. I mean, 2000 really gave us some stuff, but to me, on a personal level, those 3 decades meant a lot to me because they represented 3 stages of my life. 3 decades, and the 3 stages of film evolution that I was, a part of, and it's a part of me. So that is to me the birth of my love for film, as I see that it's also the birth of film in my life, that where film is today. So I think that about wraps it up. What do you think?
Yeah.
You got-
I got nothing else to say except little birthday wishes.
Thank you very much.
Everybody, drop down, email us birthday wishes.
Yes, I would very much appreciate that. So we really hope you enjoyed the show, and hope you'll join us next week for an all-new episode. Please help to support the pod by giving us a nice 5-star rating, a really great review, or another way you can just support us by following us on Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Audible, or Boomplay, or basically wherever you get your podcast fix. Also, you just recommend us to a friend, to an enemy, to
your neighbor's fishes, dogs, cats owner
That way too. There we get a multiple level of recommendations.
across all animal species.
All right. So also don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and our YouTube channel for updates and announcements. Also, remember, Facebook is where we drop our promo trailers for an upcoming episode. So check those out. We really appreciate your listeners on that. As Carlos here mentioned, you can contact us via email to thefilmjoepod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and get some feedback. So I'm Joe,
I'm Carlos.
and this is the Film Joe Podcast,
Where film talk
happens.